Thought I'd give you a quick tour of the spring landscape and garden, just to catch up on what's happening in April. It's Easter Sunday. Sometimes I think of this as the real start of spring, because the start of spring is March and it's still cold and rainy usually. So, April or May, whenever Easter happens to fall, it seems like to me is more springtime. And there's a lot more blooming and growing and things happening. So let's take a look. So this is my front garden. Um, I love all these textures, the way they come in together. You can see there's lace leaf maple, the red maple. This is my fig tree that's just starting to leaf out. A little miniature mugo pine. There's my prized hydrangea that doesn't look like much right now, and you can see I have netting over it because the deer love to munch on it, but in the summer it's glorious. I have this upright Japanese maple that's so pretty and gives a little shade to this front garden. We're seeing the tail end of the red flowering currant flowers. They're just finishing, and the 9-bark is just starting to bud and getting ready to flower. It has dark burgundy leaves. There's a weeping spruce here, and the Lithidora is coming into full bloom. So lots of color and texture in the front garden. We'll walk down this pathway and you can see some of the other things blooming. This is a white lilac that's just getting ready to bloom, and I put this mesh around it to keep the deer from eating off all the flower buds. Some rosemary blooming, one of the azaleas that's in full flower at the moment. Here's another azalea. There's one behind me that's a white azalea, and it blooms later, and it's fabulous when it's blooming. This little tree I planted several years ago is a really nice small yard tree that's called a Stewartia pseudocamellia. And the reason it's called that is the flowers look very much like camellia flowers. They're white and they bloom usually May into June probably more reliably. And it has this really cool, interesting bark to look at in the winter and some fall colors. So that's a nice little yard tree. This is a tea bush, actually, that you could collect the leaves from and make tea. You can see a little bit of this azalea that's blooming behind that little birdhouse, and that was the regrowth from a giant azalea that came with the house and died back one year suddenly, I think because of the neighbor's herbicide use. But it's making a comeback. This is a little messy here, but this is my hosta corner. There's 2 hostas that are just emerging, and this one's pretty well leafed out. And there's a few camas in here that haven't bloomed yet. Coming down this rock wall, I have these wonderful poppies that are just starting to really get going. So the leaves have come out nicely, and you can see the flower buds are starting to develop. A few tulips, volunteer strawberries. Here's a lupin that I have been babying, trying to keep the slugs from eating. And some more of these fabulous azaleas that only bloom for a short time, but boy, when they're in bloom, aren't they something? And then here's another variety. These are all azaleas I didn't plant, so I don't know the names of them. I think that's a Hino Crimson, the miniature red one. And here is my Asian pear row, pleached row. You can see it's getting to the end of the bloom, but beautiful white flowers along here, and the leaves are starting to emerge. So that makes a really nice screen in the summer for my backyard. And then I'll get, of course, a lot of fruit later. Here's a plant that I didn't know existed when I moved in here, and like several years after we moved in, it emerged. It's a clematis, and it has big pink and white striped flowers, and it shares space with a golden hop that I planted there. So this covers the porch and hides all the ugly stuff in the summer. Behind the hot tub, there's a nice wax myrtle, 2 wax myrtles that I planted from scavenged plants, and they make a nice screen and lots of good bird habitat. Here's a evergreen huckleberry that's in flower. That was another scavenged plant. We'll come down. Oh, and here it's all cut back right now, but this is really something else in the summertime. This is a fuchsia magellanica, so the hardy fuchsia, and I kind of keep it confined. It really will take over the whole area if I let it, so I cut it back really hard every year, and then by partway into summer it'll be all over this garden arbor, and it makes a dramatic entry to the garden, and the hummingbirds just love it. They flock to it. And then coming down into the vegetable garden, there isn't very much happening. Why? Because I'm embarking on a big project. So we replaced our fence last year. We have a nice new fence, and I do have a few things growing in some places that are perennials, like the rhubarb and asparagus and artichokes, but mostly I haven't been planting this year because I'm embarking on a reconstruction of this garden. I've realized the shape of the beds, the orientation, the size, the height, the materials, a lot of things I'm not happy with. It's been a lot of years of struggling with them, so I'm redoing things and forcing myself not to plant. And this is kind of a test area here, so you can see what I'm heading toward is getting away from the timbered beds and moving into masonry. And then I'm using my mosaic skills to create some decorative caps for the beds. So this will be happening this summer. I've moved a bunch of things already. I'm trying to save some things. Like this rosemary, I cut it back hard, but it's gonna stay. The sage is moving. The raspberries are gonna stay put. I moved the strawberries. So it's just a little bit at a time as I can afford materials and kind of find the time to work on it. And it should be an interesting transformation. I'm really looking forward to it. And hopefully you'll come and check things out as I go along. Here's another fig in my garden. This will stay. And this is all right outside my mosaic studio window, so I get to gaze out at the garden and these beautiful trees when I'm working. Anyway, just a quick catch up. Oh, one last thing. Let's go through this door and check out the peach fan, because everyone loves the peach fan. It looks a little scraggly at the moment because it's in between the bloom and the leafing out. But it had beautiful pink flowers all over it, as it always does, and I pruned it quite hard to get rid of a lot of disease, and we'll see how that does. I've treated it a couple times this spring and sprayed and pruned it, and I'm trying to manage a tree that is disease resistant, but it's not disease proof. So it does have disease issues in this climate. So, but it produces a lot of fruit every year anyway. So I'm just trying to keep it as happy as possible for as long as possible. And in another month, it should be fully leafed out, and it looks really pretty against this wall. So thanks for joining me a garden journey. You can see a little bit of the rougher parts of the garden behind me. Some areas that need a lot of weeding and maintenance at the moment, but it's a constant process. So happy Easter.